Hi, welcome to the Entry Buckle book review of Bare Bones, number 10, Spring 2022. Now I've got three of those. I've got Bare Bones, the best of, I love that. And also Bare Bones, number 5, slightly confusing numbering I think. Number 10 for this one, which is only 6 months later. Certain how that jumped forward so quickly. However, what's in it? 108 pages, it's in black and white all the way through, and it features a lot of great little articles. I bought it for the main one at the front. However, the other articles are really quite fascinating anyway. It's certainly one of those things you can dip into and think, you know what, that is pretty, must go and check out more about this writer or that. This one, let's just show the contents, probably best. 108 pages, and you've got various articles, 60s television comic book adaptations, Nightmare Alley, you've got Star Wars, you've got Chris Matheson, you've got Digging into Crime Digest. I love those ones. Quite often, because of course, many of these crime digests never turned up in the UK. So it's got, when you read them, you think, you know what, I don't think I'll ever see those either. They might turn up, maybe at comic conventions. Maybe. Monsters Unleashed, they certainly do. There's some interesting little bit points that this book is just great. Henry Farrell, I must admit, never heard of him. Maybe other people, he's probably a legend. However, I've never heard of him. But amazing, I've heard lots of the films, of course. So it's Baby Jane, you've got, not all the films, I must admit this one. What's the Matter with Helen? Never heard of that one. Dennis Weaver, apparently, and also, obviously, Debbie Reynolds and Shelley Winters. But you go through all the way through, there's obviously many Flesh Feast, Misery, Friday the 13th, Watcher in the Woods, Secret of the Harvest Home, and so on. Obviously involved in lots and lots of films. Then on to this. Got comic book adaptions, all the gold key ones. I don't know if it has everything. Of course, this is the 60s. Obviously, there was the 50s and 40s. Dell had loads of these, obviously not television, but film adaptions. There were characters that were licensed. They did a lot of that. So you've got here, 50s ones. Captain Video. Never ever saw any Captain Video. And of course, I've got Charlton, the $6 Million Man. I always loved the fact they used a photo, the cover. The cover, of course, never related at all to the story. Though, I guess, the blurb there, it says here about a tyrant's daughter forces John Drake to run an errand into a Caribbean death trap. Now, I guess it does feature the story. And so, to be fair, at least the story's given on the front. But the picture, of course, is just a generic picture of Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is perfectly reasonable. Of that one, maybe. I don't know, the undersea giant. So you've got an undersea giant. So at least it does. But that one's drawn. Whereas the others are just photos. And you've got here Green Hornet. Again, a ruthless gang, etc. It does feature what it's about. But the cover, of course, doesn't really. But Star Trek, you've got that Star Trek. Obviously Spock there, Sulu and Captain Kirk. I don't know how that relates. An expedition discovers its secret. Too late! As always. Captain Kirk always goes down, of course. Really? Why do they always send the captain down? However, Wild Wild West. Never saw that series. So, but the actual stories, the actual comic book themselves, the artwork was fine. And it does actually mention that in this. Going through it, it's really quite good. It does compliment at times, but also it turns around and says, you know what, this was pretty ropey. And same with this one, like the Avengers one, not the Marvel superhero one, but the British Steed and Emma Peel. And it's, held none of the charm and little of the excitement of the series. I love the Avengers. It was one of the greatest TV series ever as far as I'm concerned. I can still sit and watch an episode anytime. It's always great. And but I suspect some of the comic book adaptations, they were never that good. There were a few other ones as well. However, this one, Nightmare Alley. Did enjoy the recent film. I enjoyed the film noir earlier one as well. Never read the book. So it's really fascinating little information about, and it's also got examples, of course, of the book as well as the actual paperback as well, which is really nice. So you've got some great, but the reason I bought it, Star Wars. And I always love this bit, from the adventures of Luke Skywalker. Very odd. I must admit, the title Star Wars has always slightly baffled me because it's always like there's no real star, there's no war between stars. So Star Wars is just, like, to me, has always been an odd. But you've got to call it something. They could have called it, of course, Another Galaxy, Another Time. Probably wouldn't have done as well. And of course, not so iconic as, of course, the actual one that was used in the end. But I always think it's nice when you get these original books, because quite often they feature bits in the thing that are not in the film. So you sort of like, oh, you know, I never realised that happened or whatever, though I have subsequently seen bits and pieces of things that were taken out. However, you've also got Return of the Jedi, Empire, all those ones. You've got here A New Hope, of course. The Heir to the Empire. And it actually breaks it up into like the Silver Age and different ages. You've got the Silver Age here, the Golden Age. The Golden Age. Well, obviously the 1977 one. And you've got Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and all the various writers. And, well, Han Solo books explains a lot of the detail about what was happening. And it's quite fascinating, because I must admit I've been getting into Star Wars a little bit more than I used to. I went and saw the original. I loved the film. When it came out in 1977, I went and saw it about 10 times. Just absolutely loved it. I loved the sequels. And then I sort of drifted off a bit from Star Wars. I wasn't really keeping up on all these books. It's actually really nice to read, because I think, you know what, I must check out some of these. Possibly some of them are quite hard to get now. I don't know. But this one, The Heir to the Empire. So just the Essential Legends collection. You've got the Shadow of the Empire. And this one, Vector Prime. Death Troopers, that sounds quite good. There's one here, sort of a zombie one, which is nice. I always think with Star Wars, of course, is because you've got none of the superheroes characters. There's no, of course, Superman could turn up. No, of course he couldn't because of being, but okay, the Marvel characters could turn up. Obviously, Superman that would be weird if Superman turned up, wouldn't it? A New Dawn. Yeah, so there's lots of other books that they're showing here. And I've bought a few of the books. They're quite readable, I must admit. And I enjoyed this one, actually, Light of the Jedi. It's got terrible reviews at the top, but I found it quite a reasonable read. And also it's got, actually I bought one that was one about, I can't remember what the title was now, it was about 40 writers that sort of give a load of stories telling a different perspective of the original film. And I thought that was an absolutely brilliant read. I've been thoroughly enjoying going through it. And there's apparently an Empire Strikes Back one, which I must check out. Anyway. So that's the Star Wars one. So it just gives a lot of details about all the only disappointment thing for me is I love the High Republic stories. And they mention, obviously, you've got Kenobi, obviously, which of course fits in with the current TV series, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But the High Republic, I wish they'd do more stories about that. But I also would love, I don't know what it would be called, the Old Republic, or even older, or before the Republic. Just all the various stories about the very, very early origins of the Jedi. It doesn't seem to be that much about that sort of period. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's lots of books about it. But it would be nice, like the sort of the origin of the Force, etc. Those sort of books. I don't know. Just, however, you got this Conversations with the Father, Chris Matheson, a memoir about Richard Matheson, my dad and God. Really, really fascinating conversation all the way through, and that's about 7 or 8 pages. And then on to Verdict Crime Detection magazine, and it features I think it's about 4 issues, 1953. Must be fairly obscure. I doubt if there's copies over here in the UK. There might be, but it mentions a number of other ones like Manhunt. Of course, there's a lovely collection of books, Manhunt ones. I really enjoyed reading those. They're very short stories, very short, like 4 or 5 pages sometimes, and they're just great. I just really, really brilliant books. And this one, Verdict, I don't know if there's a collection. Don't think of all these ones. That would be nice. I love those sort of collections. Though reading some of these, some of them were good. Obviously, some of them, because it complements the ones that are really, really good. And it also puts the comments about saying that they're not that great, some of the stories. And it was a whole mix of different stories. The Vengeance is Mine, Genius at Work, a 4-pager about a mystery writer who cranks out his pot boilers on a typewriter, etc., etc. And also puts the covers as well, which is always good. So you've got here 35 cents. Actually, that's weird. It says 1953, 1956. Oh, right. So 19. Why does it say 1953? Very confusing. I said 1953. Seems to actually be 1956. That's confusing. However, I'm certain that apparently it was the original set of this magazine, and then obviously they brought out some new ones with reprints. Maybe people obviously, I mean, it's only a couple of years afterwards, it would seem to make, so it wouldn't, surely people would have them. or have read them already. Why would you think that would be a success? Very odd. I don't know. Maybe, especially when you got like all the old shops, the bookshop, magazine shops, where you could pick up old copies of those sort of things. You'd think that they would. However, does mean got a lot of references as well, which is always good. This one I loved. I love this. Monsters Unleashed. I mean, I always keep thinking, so I'd love to see an omnibus edition come out of all these sort of ones, the Monsters Unleashed, one big omnibus of Monsters Unleashed. But when you read some of the comments he put, I mean, just really, really funny. I mean, he's very dismissive of some of them. Some of them he actually compliments quite, but it still was, and it also features an index to it as well. So you've got Thomas Dish. I love Thomas Dish's writing. You've got art, obviously, Frank Brunner, etc. Bill Everett. Of course, quite often mentions about the reprints. Bill Everett. I love those reprints. Bill Everett is just the best. Again, another one that I would love to see in an omnibus. But there were some reasonable ones. I quite enjoyed quite a few of these black and white magazines. They weren't superb, but they did have a few oddball stories. And quite often, lots of reprints like that. Man Thing. Why reprint that straight away? Savage Tales, May 1971. That was only 2 years later. Very odd. However, I guess the reason was, of course, that Savage Tales magazine was actually quite expensive by the time. It became quite collectible very quickly because of being the first appearance, obviously, with Conan in a black and white magazine. I didn't buy it, unfortunately. I wish I had. This one, Werewolf. Got a werewolf story there. And a variety of different artists that are used. And you've got, well, actually, again, it's got lists for all of them. It goes through every issue. And like I say, some of them, the series continues to spiral down in a meandering time waster, which sort of says it all, doesn't it? And again, it's got Tony Isabella, etc. Gulliver Jones. I enjoyed the Gulliver Jones stories, and again, one that I would love to see a small collection of the Gulliver Jones. Don't think there is, unless there is one. Maybe someone could put in the comments below. Maybe it exists. I don't know. And you've also got Wendigo and all that sort of thing. They had varieties of Man Thing. Frank, I was never a fan of Man Thing. There was recently some collections of Man Thing, and I just didn't buy it. But also there was a weird mix of sort of articles as well. They often include. I always skipped over those. I never ever read those. I suppose I should have done, but they just didn't do much for me. Is she human or beast? Tigra or Tigra? I'm never certain. Anyway, I always called it Tigra. But you got that. And Monsters Unleashed. And it says here, an annual was released in the fall of 75, but no original content was included. However, the next one is really good. It's got the fiction, 5-star fiction, Star Maker, Olaf Stapledon's 1937 novel. Absolutely amazing book. I remember reading that years and years ago. Completely baffling, completely lost me, but it was still a fascinating read. I must actually pick it up again. It's one of those books that you think, oh, maybe now I might look at it and think, oh, you know what? That actually, yeah, that's something to do next. Go and buy a copy of that again. My copy went somewhere. I don't know. I left it somewhere, gave it to someone, possibly. And also it's got other reviews as well. And also goes to Sleaze Alley. Reviews here of various slightly unusual books here. A Mad Lust drove in to ravish and kill. Beast of Shame. So you got all the way through it. And then it goes on to a very odd bit at the end. I stood on King Kong's actual head. See, that's the sort of thing you get in these sort of books. Just brilliant. I'm not going to show you pictures of King Kong's head. Amazing. Actually, Green Goblin as well. Weird. But King Kong's head is still around. I don't know which period. The 1976 one. Possibly. I don't know. I can't imagine the 1933, whatever it was, one. That would be really odd, wouldn't it, if that was still around? Fascinating. However, we also got here the works of David Show. So you got a little there, and then onto Conga Gallery. Oh, again, that's amazing. And also, obviously, people writing the book. And now the list of all the back issues. And you've got here Scream Factory. You got here sold out. Obviously, some were sold out. Some $15. So pretty 15. And then Bare Bones. You've got Bare Bones 1. Bare Bones 2, 3, 4, magazine size double issue, then number 5. See, this is a bit confusing because, of course, there was a Bare Bones earlier. This, I've got number 5, but that obviously isn't the same one. So you've got Bare Bones 5. Anyway, Bare Bones 6, Dark Shadows, $10. You've got Scream Factory, the best of Bare Bones. I love that as well. That was very good. Massive, thick, full of some really great articles. And then we're through to the next one. Now, weirdly, they don't include the number. That's the thing that's slightly a bit weird. Why didn't they put they put the numbers on the other one? So you got here number 3, number 4, number 5, etc. But on the next page, they include these ones. They don't include the numbers. And actually, I was struggling to see what the dates were and the numbers. You think they could have put the numbers? It would have made it a bit easier to look at it. However, it looks like Bare Bones issue number 11 on sale in August 2022. And I will definitely be looking out for that. Hope it's going to be excellent. I have just ordered a copy of this one, King Kong one. So, because it's got HP Lovecraft adaptations. So I'm looking forward to that. Might get that one as well. Planet of the Apes, films and novelisations. That could be interesting as well. Anyway, I'll wait till I get the King Kong one before I order that one. What an excellent book. I really, really love this. So I've got another one here which I'll be reviewing as well. This one, Battling Britons. I love these sort of books. Just brilliant little fanzines, 108 or whatever. I don't know how many pages this. I'm saying 108, probably isn't. I don't know. But this one's 108. And I've got other ones of film ones. I've got fancy artist ones. They're just great little books. Just so enthused with a love for the books as well as the films. Just fascinating. So this one is definitely totally recommended.